What's up, YouTube? Now I want to talk about one of the most controversial topics. Should we have invaded Iraq? Now, first of all, this is really a double-edged sword because, for one thing, Saddam had to be removed. He was abusive to his people, but also sanctions killed about 2 million Iraqis, for one thing. And at the same time, they were squandering money for the oil for food program. And they were also sending money to terrorist suicide bombers' families. So he was basically backing up the Sunni secular terrorists that had political motives against Israel. And he had a secular government. He was not the Islamo-fascist like Iran is and Saudi Arabia. But now, I don't think the way we approached it was right. We shouldn't have lied in front of the rest of the world saying, oh, he's got WMDs and supported Al Qaeda, because then it turned out to be false. And they should never have had General Miller in charge trying to get quick results of using detainees. I think that is where it went downhill. And they could have, he may have been Arab Spring material, because they probably should have focused on Iran, because Iran is more dangerous than Iraq ever was, and they do have WMDs. And Amin Jihad is such a psycho. I mean, he's going to try and provoke a war with Israel. We should have dealt with Iran. But, sooner or later we will be going to war with them. And now they're getting a lot of influence in the Middle East, so who knows what's going to happen. But this is really a double-ended sword. Now, the management in the war, until the troop surge, it could have been better. But the troop surge kind of reduced the violence and bought some more time to the issue. But eventually the Iraqis wanted us to leave, so basically, have the objectives been met? Kind of, they have and they haven't. Like, we expected, getting Saddam Hussein out was one thing, but on the other hand, getting a democratic government that's going to have good relations with the U.S. is kind of spotty. And they're more tied with Iran. And now that Iran has sanctions, they're actually cheating their sanctions, doing business with Iraq underground. So this is a very delicate situation. And basically, I don't think unilateral force is necessarily worth the image cost that it might have if people around the world look at it like Nazi aggression. But then again, you got to look at who are these people, because some of these people, like, some of the European countries had terrorist attacks. What did they do? Did they even use their military? Did they even consider Al Qaeda or helping the war on terror? I mean, they just didn't seem concerned. They said, oh, we got other important stuff to deal with, and they did nothing. So I don't know about that, because Saddam did have to be removed. It just probably could have been done better, and they could have focused more on the humanitarian part rather than looking like they're declaring war on the country. And basically, the North Korea, what are we going to do with them? Well, who knows? That's one country that, they have WMDs. They are threatening stability, and sooner or later they will have an issue. But, like if we went to North Korea and removed them, we'd be facing China. If we go into Iran and even try and do anything, Russia and China will definitely get involved. And Pakistan will support Iran. And so it would become a bloodbath. So basically, there's a very delicate power balance. And the main thing people are concerned about Iraq is the threatened stability in the region. If you end up with a terror breeding ground in Iraq and more Al Qaeda, then they could turn around and launch attacks outside of the country. And they could go in there, plot attacks, taking advantage of the weak government. And that's where it really becomes a heavy issue. Like, what do we do? Because the Iraqis, we can't leave. We have to stay in Iraq another 100 years, because otherwise they won't make it without us. But we can't stay because they kicked us out. So basically, it's a very tough issue. And overall, right now, there are a lot of attacks in that country. And, it's basically, you have Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds. Now, out of the Shiites, Sunnis, and Kurds, the Kurds did launch an attack on Turkey. They had some terrorist groups in there that did some attacks, and they had a border issue. And so that's where a lot of countries in the Middle East are angry that we went in there and created a power situation. And also, the Shiites and Sunnis ended up with the sectarian stuff, but they're in a political stalemate in the government right now. and the president and the vice president are pointing the finger at each other, and they're really, really going at it. So that's going to be a real issue, and basically, threatens stability in the region if it's not under control. So that's one thing. It could really go either way. There's no way we can tell until 10 to 20 years from now. And that's my review.